Happy New Year! Welcome back to another video. I was thinking, since it's a new year, that we would start off with a new pedal. I like the idea of making videos where there is something that is simple and easy to do, so that if you maybe haven't built anything before, you can start off with something and it won't be too much of a headache, hopefully. I have the perfect little pedal here, hopefully. So today we're gonna build a feedback looper. It doesn't require that many parts. The hardest part is you need to wire up a tiny little resistor for an LED and a foot switch and also a potentiometer for the control. But I'll show you how to do everything in this video and hopefully you'll try this out and let me know in the comments below. Let's get started. Okay, we're gonna start off by pre-tinning all the parts. These are mono jacks. It's the one that goes into your guitar, basically like this. If you've seen my other videos, you know I explain this in great detail. It's basically just you have a ground connection. It's the part that connects to the long part here. Then you have a black little spacer that puts the two signals away from each other, and then this is the lead. And the middle connection here in the middle goes to ground. Here we have power in, and it's basically the same thing. You have a plus and a minus. Here we have a little LED. It's these two legs that stick up here. We're going to talk more about them later. And then here is a 500K log audio taper pot. Here we have a switch, and it's a DP-DT switch. If you're gonna buy one, look for one of these. You can use other switches, it doesn't really matter. Pre-tinning, which is what we're gonna start off with, is just basically what it sounds like. You take your soldering iron and you hold it up to a part and you melt solder into the part where you're going to connect something, and by doing so you make it easier for wires to connect. And we're just going to do that to all of these connections, to all of these parts. So the output jacks and these legs here, you don't need much at all, just a little bit to make it easier for things to go together. And all you do is you hold the soldering iron to the part, heat it up a little bit, and then you push the solder into, and it melts into, becomes like a liquid coat on top of the part. It almost looks like the unicorn blood from the first Harry Potter movie. And then in, a second or two, it becomes solid as soon as you take away the heat. And then the same for the switch, just hold it to the legs, push in a bit of solder, something like that. Easy peasy. Now we're going to touch some wires. Okay, we're going to start off with the lead wires, and we're going to use green wires for these to make it easy. The first one goes here from this output jack down here, and then we're going to tuck it under here like so, and over here to the switch. And now we're going to do something that is a little bit weird maybe to some of you, and that is, first off, we're gonna pre-tin this wire. Now obviously you don't have to do things the way I do. I have all these pre-made wires that have all these easy cut things, and you can buy them in where I buy my pedals, when I buy pedal kits. I'll put a link to that website in the description. Not that I am affiliated with them in any way. And now we're gonna attach this wire to both of these two connections. the ones that are furthest down in this corner here. I hope you can see what I'm doing. And so I'm just gonna hold this up to the, let's call it the second to last leg, I suppose. And I think I need a little bit more solder here. And then we're gonna take this wire and we're gonna do the same thing with it. So we're making a cross connection here. 2 wires that go to both these 2 legs. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so we have this wire here that comes off these 2 connections here. And we're gonna pull it over here to this jack. And it's gonna be connected to the lead on this side. So not the ground. Something like that. So now we have lead to the switch to the other lead on that jack. And now we're going to take the next lead wire. We need a lead wire here. This jack. Like that. And then we're going to pull this over to this jack's lead like this, and I'm gonna cut this here because it doesn't need to be this long, and I'm gonna cut away the plastic around it, and I'm gonna pre-tin it. From the middle leg of the potentiometer we're gonna attach a wire. And then we're going to take this wire, we're going to pre-tin it, attach it here together with the other green wire that we just put down. So now we have to this output jack's lead and down to the middle of this potentiometer. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to bend these 2 LED legs back just a little bit like this, so that we are a little bit closer to them. We're going to put down a little bit of solder on them, and I want to put the solder pretty close down so that once I am done I can cut these legs down to size. Something like that. You have 2 legs. One is a long leg and one is a short leg. And the short leg is going to be the ground leg. So it's a good thing to not cut the legs until you're done with the soldering. The next thing is the last leg here needs a wire. So we're going to attach one here, like so. And just to make sure you know what I mean, this is the first leg, because you go this way, from this side, over this side. So that's the first leg, that's the middle leg, and this is the last leg. 1, 2, 3. Just so we are on the same page. I'm going to tuck this wire in under here so that it's not in the way. And I'm going to pull this to the switch. And on this side here, I'm going to connect it to the upper leg right here. I hope you guys can see it. Now it's connected. The next thing is we have 3 connections on this switch right here, and this one right here on the furthest to this side is the lead, and the top here, this side, is the ground. So we're going to attach this to lead because we need a signal from it, and then we're going to pull this wire along until we get to the longer leg of the LED, and we're going to cut this size, and then we're going to pre-tin it, and we're going to hold it up to the leg where we're going to connect it, and we're just going to let the solder melt the 2 parts together with each other so we get a connection, something like that. And it might look a little bit weird right now, but I'm going to cut that leg afterwards when I'm done with it. And that is all the wires that are green. We're now going to move on to the ground wires, and they are not that many of them. So the first one is going to be connected to this leg right here, the ground on this jack. And then we're gonna tuck this wire in under and pull it towards the switch so that it doesn't get stuck anywhere. And then we're gonna pre-tin the tip, just like all the other wires and all the other parts. And then we're gonna hold wire up to the middle leg there, and we're gonna melt in place, something like that. I'll zoom in again and hopefully you'll see it, something like that. Middle connection here. Next, we're gonna pre-tin another blue wire, and we're gonna attach it to the other leg of the LED, and we're gonna pull the wire down under, just like we did with the other LED. I'm gonna try to separate the LED legs away from each other so that they are not in the way. And we're gonna pull this wire up, and we are gonna put some tin on it, pre-solder it, and then we're gonna hold this wire up to the first leg here, and we are gonna melt it in place so that it sticks. Then we're gonna pull this wire up out of the chassis like this so it sticks up, and we're gonna take a wire cutter. You don't need to use one like this one that is for electricity. You can actually take a scissor or something that you don't care that much about, and we're gonna cut this wire in half so the parts are no longer connected. And then we are gonna strip the wires. I'm gonna use a scissor and just try to gently cut through the plastic. That's what stripping the cables mean. You just basically take away the shielding around them. And then we're gonna pre-tin them. And now you might wonder, why did I solder a cable to these two connections and cut it in half? And that's because we need to put a tiny little resistor here so that we don't overload the LED. There's going to be a 9-volt adapter here, the same kind we use for all our pedals. And if 9-volt goes in through one of these tiny little LEDs, it will be destroyed because it's too much for it to handle. These tiny little LEDs are 1.5 or something, and yeah, 9-volt is going to be too much. So we're going to put a tiny little resistor there. And first I'm just going to put a bit of shrinking tube on one of these cables, because this is something that is going to sort of flop around in there a little bit. Not, you know, super happy about that, so putting some shrinking tube on will help. And I'm just going to twist the resistor around the cable, sort of almost like creating a spiral or a spring or something. Clamp it down around it. I don't know if you can see what I did. It's not super important really. Is that visible? Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. I twisted it around, and this is just to hold it in place. And now I'm just going to put some solder to make a solid connection. Do the same thing to this side, and then I can pull the shrinking tube over. Now it's all twisted around and solid, and I'm just gonna melt some solder into the bolts like that. And now if I pull this shrink tube over like this, it doesn't really matter if this touches anything because there won't be anything to touch. And you can shrink shrinking tube with the soldering iron by slowly moving it across it like this. Be careful so you don't burn yourself, because obviously, I hope it's obvious, you can burn yourself on a soldering iron. It's very hot. And as long as it sticks where it's supposed to stick, it doesn't need to be overly perfect, because we're gonna close this pedal up and no one is gonna see anything. So if you're not that savvy with a soldering iron yet, it will be okay. So something like that. That's gonna be good enough, or maybe even better. Okay, so now I'm just gonna quickly cut these legs down. And now we only have one wire left, I believe. It's the ground here on the output for power. Just pre-tin the wire again. Hold the wire up to this leg and because we have already pre-tinned it apart, it just flows together like so. And then we pull the wire over to where we're going to connect it, and we cut a bit. I always try to cut a little bit more so that the wires are a little bit longer. You don't want the wires to be stiff and pulled taut. You want them to hang somewhat loose in there so that if something moves, the wire has, you know, the possibility to move. I see this often in guitars, you know, people, you know, mostly in more like inexpensive guitars, but even in some other guitars sometimes you have wires that are really taut and they've been stretched out and pulled, you know, apart by things moving, and they were very tight to begin with. So yeah, try to think about those things when you're building things, that like things move and you might think that they won't, but they will. It's just the nature of things. Things that you think can't happen will happen. So we are going to hold this wire up to this jack, and it's connecting to the ground. I'm just going to melt the solder together, something like that. And now we are actually done. We don't need grounds on these. They are grounded through the metal enclosure. So let's go and try this out and see what it sounds like. I hope you like the pedal. I hope you give it a try. Maybe, you know, there are a lot of things you can do with it. Have fun. I hope you like the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay awesome and cool, and go and build something